When the child you sacrificed everything for turns against you, the pain becomes almost unbearable. My own flesh and blood, my son, looked me straight in the eyes and called me worthless. I can still hear his voice, sharp as broken glass, as he slammed his fist against my desk. "You don't get it, Mama. You're old, outdated, worthless when it comes to modern business." The word hung in the air between us. Worthless. 63 years of life, decades of silent sacrifice, countless nights spent building an empire from nothing, all dismissed with a single cruel word from the lips of my only son. What Derek didn't know was that the desk he was pounding on, I owned it. The office building we stood in, mine. The luxury car he drove to work that morning, the mansion he slept in each night, the very company he was so desperate to control, all mine. If you're struggling with ungrateful family members who take advantage of your kindness, this story might give you the strength to stand up for yourself. Subscribe now so you don't miss what happens next when this mother finally reveals the truth. Also, download your ebook titled Suspense and Thriller Stories by clicking the link in the pinned comment. My name is Evelyn Brooks. I was born on the south side of Richmond, Virginia, in a neighborhood where most folks worked 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. My parents taught me that actions matter more than words, that true strength lies in quiet persistence, not loud boasting. I met Samuel Brooks in high school. He had the warmest laugh I'd ever heard and dreams bigger than our small corner of the world. He fixed cars at a local repair shop, but every night he'd talk about owning his own chain of auto shops someday. "Evelyn," he'd say, his eyes bright with hope, "one day people all over this city will know the Brooks name." I believed him with every fiber of my being. When we married at 19, I took on 2 jobs, bank clerk by day, office cleaner by night. Every extra dollar went into our savings, our future. Samuel kept working on cars, learning the business from the inside out. Then came Derek, our only child. From the moment he was born, that boy had a flame inside him. Not the warm, steady flame of his father's ambition, but something hotter, more demanding. As a child, he never wanted the off-brand sneakers or second-hand toys. He wanted the best, even when we could barely afford the basics. "Why can't I have what Tommy has?" he'd demand, pointing to some classmate's new gadget or designer clothes. Samuel and I would exchange glances. We wanted to give him everything, but we also wanted him to understand the value of work, of earning your place. Finding that balance was our constant struggle. Life doesn't hand you things, son. You build what you want with your own 2 hands. But somewhere along the way, that lesson got lost. Maybe we sheltered him too much. Maybe we didn't share enough of our own struggles. Or maybe the world just spoke louder than we did. Everything changed when Samuel clutched his chest one Sunday morning while reading the paper. Just like that, my partner, my love, my foundation, gone. Derek was 17. I remember standing at the graveside, holding my son's trembling hand, whispering, "It's just you and me now, baby. We're gonna make it." The funeral flowers hadn't even wilted when the insurance check came. It wasn't much. Samuel never believed in spending money we didn't have to spare, but it was something, a foundation. That night, I sat at our kitchen table until dawn, calculator in hand, plotting out a future for my son. I made a decision then that would shape the next 2 decades of our lives. I would build Samuel's dream, not just for him, but for Derek. I would create a legacy that would secure my son's future. But I wouldn't just hand it to him. He would need to earn it, to prove himself worthy of what his father had dreamed of. I started small, buying a struggling auto repair shop across town, keeping Samuel's old boss as manager while I learned the business. I lived modestly, stayed in our same small house, drove the same old car. Every extra penny went back into the business or into new investments, property, stocks, minority stakes in local businesses. All the while, I kept the extent of my growing success hidden from Derek. I wanted him to finish school, go to college, develop his own drive. I wanted him to become a man his father would have been proud of. What I couldn't see then, what I refused to see, was the entitlement growing inside him, feeding on my silence, flourishing in the shadow of my quiet sacrifice. And that blindness would eventually lead us both to a reckoning neither of us saw coming.
Derek graduated with his business degree the year after his father died. When he walked across that stage, I felt Samuel's presence beside me, whispering, "We did it, Evelyn. Our boy's got his chance now." By then, I had quietly expanded from one auto shop to 3 locations across Richmond. The business had become profitable, with loyal customers and skilled mechanics. I handled the finances, legal matters, and strategic decisions, all while maintaining a low profile. Most customers assumed I was just the bookkeeper, and I let them. The day Derek came home from college, he strode into the main office like he already owned it. His suit cost more than I spent on clothes in a year, and his confidence filled every corner of the room. "Mama, this place needs an upgrade," he announced, eyes scanning the modest office. "We're thinking too small." I smiled, happy to see his enthusiasm. "Welcome home, baby. I've kept your father's dream alive for you." "For us," he corrected, dropping into the chair behind my desk, without asking. Within a month, I made him operations manager. I thought responsibility would teach him what textbooks couldn't. At first, he seemed to thrive. He arrived early, knew the mechanics by name, and brought fresh marketing ideas. Business increased by 15% in the first quarter under his leadership. But then came the changes. "We need a rebrand," he announced during a staff meeting. "Brooks Auto Repair sounds like some backyard garage operation. I'm changing it to Precision Performance Automotive Group." I frowned. "That's your father's name you're erasing." Derek waved his hand dismissively. "Dad would understand business evolution, Mama. We need to attract a higher-end clientele." The name changed. Then came the designer uniforms for mechanics, the remodeled reception areas, the fancy coffee machines. Costs rose, but so did our client base. I couldn't argue with success, even if something about it felt hollow. Gradually, Derek started excluding me from meetings. "Just boring supplier negotiations, Mama. No need for you to sit through it." Or, "It's just marketing talk. You'd find it tedious." Each exclusion was wrapped in a smile, a kiss on my cheek, and "I've got this." And each time I stepped back a little more, watching my son take the reins of the business I had built, until the day I realized I'd become nearly invisible in my own company. "Mrs. Brooks, should I confirm this order with Mr. Brooks instead?" a longtime supplier asked me over the phone. "I can approve it." "Oh, Mr. Brooks mentioned all purchases over $5,000 needed his signature now." My stomach tightened. I'd signed no such policy change. The mansion came next. Derek called me one Sunday morning. "Mama, I've got something to show you. Wear something nice." He picked me up in a gleaming silver Maserati I'd never seen before. The leather seats felt like butter against my Sunday dress. "New car?" I asked casually. "Just got it yesterday," he grinned. "Wait till you see where we're going." We pulled up to a sprawling house in the most exclusive neighborhood in Richmond. 6 bedrooms, 7 bathrooms, marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and a swimming pool shaped like a guitar. "This is it, Mama," he said, arms spread wide as we stood in the cavernous entryway. "My new home." My heart skipped. "Derek, how can you afford this?" He laughed, the sound bouncing off the high ceilings. "The business is booming. I've been saving, investing. Don't worry your head about the finances." But finances were exactly what I worried about. I knew every dollar that flowed through our company. The success was real, but not Maserati and mansion real. Not for a 27-year-old who'd been working for less than 5 years. That night, I pulled out the company books, spreading them across my kitchen table. The numbers told their story. Derek had increased his salary 4 times in 3 years. There were new company credit cards I hadn't approved, loans taken against business assets, properties purchased under the company name that I had never seen. "What are you doing, son?" I whispered to the empty room. The dinner party started next. Lavish affairs at his new mansion where I was occasionally invited as an afterthought. "Oh, Mama, I'm hosting some investors Friday night. Drop by if you want."
I'd arrived to find my son holding court among strangers in expensive clothes, talking about my company and my expansion plans. When introduced, I was simply my mother, not the owner, not the president, just an elderly woman who smiled politely and faded into the background. One night, after such a party, Derek pulled me aside. "Mama, I need to discuss something with you. I'm bringing in some investors to take us national. We could have shops in every major city within 5 years." "National?" I repeated. "Derek, that's too fast. Your father believed in steady growth." "Dad's been gone for 10 years, he cut in sharply. With all due respect, he was thinking small. This is a different world now. I felt my face flush. "This company isn't just about profit, Derek. It's about people, community, your father's legacy." "It's about success," he snapped. "And frankly, Mama, you're holding us back. The investors want to see modern leadership, not, well..." His eyes flicked over my modest dress, my sensible shoes. The words hung unspoken. "Not you." 2 days later, he came to my office with a sleek leather folder. "I need your signature on these," he said, sliding it across my desk. "What am I signing?" "Just some reorganization papers, corporate structure stuff, boring legal details." Something in his too casual tone made me pause. "I'll need to review these with our lawyer." His smile tightened. "Our lawyer drafted them, Mama. It's standard procedure." "Even so," I said, closing the folder without smiling. "I'll look them over tonight." That evening, I called not our company lawyer, but my personal attorney, Eleanor Washington, a sharp-minded woman I'd known since before Derek was born. "Eleanor," she said after reviewing the documents, "these aren't reorganization papers. This is a controlling interest transfer. You'd be signing over 75% of the company to Derek." My hand flew to my throat. "That can't be right." "It's right here in black and white. And there's more. There's language about your diminished capacity and retirement due to health concerns. Evelyn, did you tell anyone you were ill?" "I'm as healthy as a horse," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. That night, I couldn't sleep. The betrayal cut deep. But what hurt more was the realization. My son thought I was too stupid to check what I was signing, too trusting, too worthless. The next morning, I went to the bank early and requested access to my safe deposit box. Inside were the original deeds to all 3 business locations, property titles, and my master trust documents. Everything was still secure under my name or my holding company's. Then I did something I'd never done. I installed a small recording device in the main office conference room. That afternoon, I heard my son's voice crystal clear. "Yeah, man, once I get Mom to sign the transfer, everything will be in my name. She doesn't even understand what she owns." A pause, then laughter. "Nah, she thinks she's still running things. Old people, you know, they don't get how business works today. But hey, I'll make sure she have a nice retirement apartment somewhere. I'm not heartless." The world tilted beneath me. My baby boy, my only child, the living piece of Samuel I had left on this earth, planning to discard me like yesterday's newspaper. Have you ever had someone you love deeply betray your trust? Comment below if you've experienced family betrayal. You're not alone in this fight.
That night, I sat alone in my kitchen, hands trembling around a cup of cold tea. The recording of Derek's voice played over and over in my head. For the first time since Samuel died, I felt truly alone. But beneath the hurt, something hardened inside me. A quiet resolve took root. The next morning, I called Eleanor. "I need a complete audit," I told her. "Every business, every property, every account. And I need absolute discretion." Eleanor assembled a small team, a forensic accountant, a private investigator, and a corporate security specialist. We met at her office after hours, away from curious eyes and loose lips. "Start from the beginning," the accountant said gently. "What exactly do you own, Mrs. Brooks?" I took a deep breath. More than my son realizes. Over the next 3 weeks, we pieced together the full picture. 3 auto repair shops, 6 commercial properties leased to other businesses, a small office building downtown, numerous investments and stock holdings, all registered under various legal entities I'd established over the years: Brooks Family Holdings, Evelyn Trust, ESB Enterprises. The total value? Just over $11 million. "And your son doesn't know the extent of this?" Eleanor asked, eyebrows raised. "He knows the company is successful, but he thinks it's worth maybe a quarter of its actual value. I never showed him all the cards I was holding." The security specialist whistled low. "Why not?" I thought about Samuel, about his dreams, about his belief that nothing worth having comes without earning it. I wanted him to build something himself first, to prove he was ready. As our investigation deepened, we discovered more unsettling moves by Derek. He'd been approaching potential investors using financial projections that assumed he already had full ownership. He drafted employment contracts that significantly reduced my role and authority. He'd even changed the locks on the file room at the main office. "This is methodical," Eleanor said grimly. "He's isolating you, diminishing your role, preparing to push you out completely." The hardest part was maintaining normalcy. Each day I went to work, smiled at my son, and pretended I didn't know what he was planning. I signed non-essential papers, attended the meetings he couldn't exclude me from, and watched him parade around in his expensive suits, paid for with money from my company. At night, I worked with Eleanor's team, gathering evidence, strengthening my legal position, and preparing for what would come next. "We should act now," the accountant urged after a month of preparation. "The longer you wait, the more damage he could do." But I shook my head. Not yet. "Why wait?" Eleanor asked. I thought about it for a long moment. "Because this isn't just about business. This is my son, my only child. I need to be certain there's no misunderstanding, no other explanation." And truthfully, a small part of me still hoped I was wrong, that there was some innocent explanation, that the boy I raised hadn't become the stranger who saw me as nothing but an obstacle. That hope died the day I overheard him on the phone with our company lawyer, a man I'd trusted for years. "Mr. Harrington, I need those guardianship papers drawn up." Yeah, she's becoming increasingly confused, forgetting meetings, making odd decisions. Yes, I know it's difficult to prove, but you've seen how she is in meetings lately, right? Exactly. We need to act before she damages the company. He was building a case to have me declared mentally incompetent. That night, I made my decision. I called Eleanor. "I'm ready," I said simply. We spent the next 2 weeks preparing everything.
new banking authorizations, security measures at all properties, documentation of every transaction Derek had made without proper authority, evidence of his attempts to undermine me. Meanwhile, Derek grew bolder. He hired a new executive team without consulting me. He scheduled meetings during times I knew I had doctor's appointments. He began referring to himself as the CEO in company communications, a title he had never been given. "When will you confront him?" Eleanor asked as we finalized our preparations. I looked at the invitation sitting on my desk, an elaborate card with gold embossing. Join us in celebrating Derek Brooks' 35th birthday. At his residence, Saturday, November 12th, black tie requested. His birthday, I said quietly. He's hosting a party for the investors, business partners, everyone he's been impressing with my money, my company, my life's work. Eleanor's eyebrows raised. "You're going to confront him publicly?" I thought about all the public events where Derek had marginalized me, introduced me as just my mother, treated me like an afterthought. "Yes," I said firmly. "It's time for the truth to come out." As the day approached, doubt occasionally crept in. Was I being too harsh? Would this destroy any chance of reconciliation? Was there another way? But then I'd remember his words. Worthless, old, outdated. The guardianship papers, the transfer documents, the systematic campaign to erase me from my own life's work. No, some lessons had to be learned the hard way. The night before the party, I sat alone in my bedroom looking at old photos. Samuel holding newborn Derek. Derek's 5th birthday, gap tooth smile wide as he blew out candles. His high school graduation, my arm around his shoulders, both of us smiling. Where had we gone wrong? When had money and status become more important than family, than honesty, than love? "Samuel," I whispered to the empty room, "I hope I'm doing the right thing. I hope you'd understand." I placed the photos back in their album and opened my closet, pushed past my usual modest dresses to the back, where a garment bag had hung untouched for years. Inside was a simple but elegant navy blue dress, classic, expensive, powerful. I'd bought it years ago for a business awards ceremony, but never had the courage to wear it. It seemed too bold, too confident for the background role I'd always played. But tomorrow, I wouldn't be in the background anymore. Tomorrow, Evelyn Brooks would finally step into the spotlight. If you've ever had to stand up to someone who underestimated you, give this video a thumbs up. We're stronger than people think.
The night of Derek's 35th birthday arrived with perfect November weather, crisp and clear, stars visible above the sprawling grounds of his mansion. As my taxi pulled up the circular driveway, I saw valets parking Bentleys and Porsches. Caterers hustled through side doors with trays of champagne. String lights twinkled in the perfectly manicured gardens. All of this, every crystal glass, every orchid arrangement, every bite of gourmet food, paid for with money from my company, my life's work. "Mrs. Brooks," a young valet said, helping me from the taxi. He was the only one who recognized me. Inside, the mansion hummed with conversation and laughter. At least 60 people filled the grand living room and spilled onto the terrace beyond. Business associates, potential investors, Richmond socialites, all orbiting around Derek like planets around the sun. I spotted him immediately, holding court near the fireplace, glass of champagne in hand, wearing a tuxedo that probably cost more than most people's monthly mortgage payments.
Beside him stood a tall, elegant woman I'd never seen before, her hand resting possessively on his arm. For a moment, I hesitated in the doorway. Doubt flickered. Was I really going to do this? Expose my own son? Create a scene that would be talked about for years? Then Derek glanced over, saw me, and his expression flashed with something between annoyance and embarrassment before he quickly masked it with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. That decided it. I moved through the crowd slowly, nodding politely to the few people who acknowledged me. Most guests glanced at my simple navy dress and sensible heels, then looked right through me. Just another older woman, unremarkable, unimportant. Derek met me halfway across the room, leaning down to give me a perfunctory kiss on the cheek. "Ma'am, you made it," he said, voice just loud enough for nearby guests to hear his dutiful son performance. "I wasn't sure you would." "I wouldn't miss my only son's birthday," I replied, smiling genuinely, because despite everything, I did love him. "Let me introduce you to some people," he said, though his eyes were already scanning the room over his head, looking for more important guests. "In a minute," I said. "First, tell me about this beautiful home. You must be very proud." His chest puffed slightly. "It's one of the finest properties in Richmond, custom built in 2018, over 8,000 square feet. The previous owner was a tech executive who relocated to California." "And the mortgage? That must be substantial." A flicker of irritation crossed his face. "Ma'am, that's hardly appropriate conversation for a party. Don't worry about my finances." "Just curious," I said mildly. "And your car collection? The Maserati, the Porsche in the driveway?" "Business is good," he said curtly. "Now let me introduce you to Veronica. She's head of marketing at—" "And the business?" I continued as if he hadn't spoken. "5 locations now, wasn't that the last count? Plus the expansion plans you mentioned?" His jaw tightened. 5 locations, actually. 2 new ones opened last month. You'd know that if you came to the executive meetings. "The executive meetings I'm not invited to, you mean?" A muscle twitched in his cheek. "Ma'am, this isn't the time or place for business talk. Why don't you get yourself some champagne? The caterers have set up a lovely spread in the dining room." He was dismissing me again, sending me away like a child while the adults talked important matters. I nodded pleasantly. "You're right. This is a party. We should celebrate properly." Relief washed over him. "Exactly. Enjoy yourself. We'll talk business Monday." "Actually," I said, raising my voice slightly, "I thought we might celebrate with a toast." Before he could object, I moved toward the center of the room and picked up a silver spoon from a nearby table and tapped it gently against my water glass. The clear tone rang out, and conversations gradually quieted. All eyes turned toward me, this unremarkable older woman in a navy dress suddenly commanding attention in a room full of Richmond elite. "For those of you who don't know me," I began, my voice steady despite my racing heart, "I'm Evelyn Brooks, Derek's mother." Polite smiles, a few murmurs of greeting. "First, I want to thank you all for coming to celebrate my son's 35th birthday." Derek's expression softened slightly, perhaps thinking I was just making a sentimental mother's toast. 35 is a significant milestone, a time when a person should truly understand the value of honesty, integrity, and gratitude. The room grew quieter. Something in my tone had shifted, and the guests sensed it. Derek took a half step forward. "Ma'am?" I smiled at him, then turned back to the crowd. My late husband, Samuel Brooks, started fixing cars in a small garage with just 2 lifts and a toolbox. When he passed, he left behind a modest life insurance policy and a dream of building something lasting. I took a sip of water, letting the silence stretch. What none of you know What my son has carefully kept from you is that I took that insurance money and built not just a business, but an empire." Murmurs rippled through the room. Derek's face drained of color. Brooks Automotive Group, or Precision Performance, as it's now called, is indeed worth millions. The 5 locations, the real estate they sit on, the expansion plans you've all heard about, all very impressive.
I reached into my purse and pulled out a slim folder. What's equally impressive is that my son has been presenting himself as the owner of all of this, when in fact, every single property, business, and major asset, including this mansion and the luxury vehicles in the driveway, are legally owned by me or my holding companies. The room erupted in shocked whispers. Faces turned toward Derek, who stood frozen, champagne glass gripped so tightly I feared it might shatter in his hand. "Mama," she said, voice strangled, "this isn't the time." "Oh, I think it's exactly the time," I replied calmly. "You see, everyone, my son recently asked me to sign some papers. Papers that would have transferred ownership to him while declaring me mentally incompetent." Gasps echoed around the room. The elegant woman who'd been on Derek's arm stepped back, putting distance between herself and the unfolding disaster. I declined to sign. Instead, I had my legal team prepare these: documentation of every property, business, and asset that belongs to me, including this house, which is owned by Brooks Family Holdings, of which I am the sole shareholder. I handed the papers to a stunned-looking man in a bow tie, who I recognized as one of the potential investors. "Feel free to pass those around. Everything is properly notarized and verified." Derek surged forward, face contorted with mixture of rage and panic. "Stop this! You're embarrassing yourself." I met his gaze steadily. "No, Derek, I'm finally standing up for myself." Turning back to the increasingly uncomfortable crowd, I continued. "My son called me worthless recently, told me I was too old, too outdated to understand modern business." Derek's face flushed dark red. What he failed to understand is that while he was buying expensive suits and hosting lavish parties, I was quietly building and managing the fortune he's been flaunting. The silence in the room was absolute now. Every eye darted between mother and son, witnessing the collapse of the carefully constructed image Derek had built. "To be clear," I said, my voice softer but no less firm, "I'm not doing this out of spite. I'm doing this because sometimes the hardest lessons are the most important ones." I turned fully toward Derek now, speaking directly to him, though everyone could hear. "You can't build real success on lies, son. Your father knew that. Somewhere along the way, you forgot." His hands trembled, eyes wild with humiliation and fury. "You planned this. You set me up to fail." "No," I corrected gently. "I gave you every opportunity to succeed honestly. You chose a different path." One by one, guests began to murmur excuses, edging toward the door. The potential investors huddled in a corner, examining my documents with grave expressions. The elegant woman had completely disappeared from the room. Derek looked around frantically, watching his carefully constructed world crumble in real time. "This isn't over," he snapped, voice low and dangerous. "You're right. It's just beginning. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., my office. We'll discuss your future with the company, if you have one." With that, I turned and walked slowly through the parting crowd, head high, back straight.
No one stopped me. No one spoke to me. They simply watched in stunned silence as I, the invisible, worthless old woman, walked out the front door of the mansion that I owned. Outside, the night air cooled my flushed cheeks. Stars still twinkled above, indifferent to the human drama below. A valet rushed to ask if I needed my car. "A taxi, please," I said quietly. As I waited, the magnitude of what I'd just done hit me. I'd publicly humiliated my only child, exposed his lies, potentially destroyed his reputation in business circles. Had I gone too far? Then I remembered the contempt in his voice when he called me worthless. The guardianship papers, the systematic campaign to erase me from my own life's work. No, some lessons had to be learned the hard way. The taxi arrived, and as I slid into the back seat, my phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor. "How did it go?" I typed back simply, "It's done." What would you have done in my place? Sometimes tough love is the only language left when words fail. Share your thoughts in the comments below.
I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Derek's face, the shock, the rage, the humiliation. I'd spent decades protecting him, and in one evening, I'd stripped away everything he thought he was. At 6:30 a.m., my doorbell rang. I opened it to find my son standing on my porch. Gone was the confident businessman in tailored suits. This Derek wore wrinkled clothes from the night before. His eyes were bloodshot, hair disheveled. He looked like a boy again, lost, confused, afraid. "Can I come in?" he asked, voice hoarse. I stepped aside silently. He walked into my modest living room and stood awkwardly, as if suddenly unsure of his place in this familiar space. The home he'd grown up in now seemed foreign to him. "You could have told me privately. You didn't have to destroy me in front of everyone." "Would you have listened?" I asked quietly. "All these years, Derek, I've tried to guide you, teach you. You stopped hearing me long ago." He sank onto the couch, head in his hands. "I've lost everything. My reputation, my investors. Veronica left last night. Said she couldn't be associated with this kind of scandal." "You haven't lost everything," I corrected. "You never had it to begin with." His head snapped up, eyes flashing. "That's cruel, Mama." "No. What's cruel is plotting to have your mother declared incompetent so you could steal her life's work." He flinched as if I'd slapped him. "I wasn't stealing. I was modernizing, taking the company to the next level. You were holding us back with your outdated ideas." "My outdated ideas built an $11 million business, while you were busy buying sports cars and impressing strangers." Silence stretched between us. Outside, birds began their morning songs, oblivious to the human pain within these walls. "What happens now?" he asked, voice small. "It depends on you." "On me? You hold all the cards, Mama. You made that perfectly clear last night." I studied my son, this stranger wearing Derek's face. Where was the little boy who'd curl up beside me during thunderstorms? The teenager who'd proudly shown me his first A in algebra? The young man who'd wept at his father's funeral, promising to make him proud? "I'm giving you two choices," I said finally. "First option, you walk away. I'll give you enough money for a modest apartment and basic living expenses for 6 months. After that, you're on your own." His face paled. "And the second option? You step down as manager. You enroll in a year-long business ethics and leadership program I've selected. You start at the bottom, working alongside the mechanics, learning every aspect of the business from the ground up. After completion, if you've genuinely changed, you can earn a minority stake in the company." "A year? Working as a mechanic? Mama, I have an MBA." "And yet you don't understand the most basic principle of business: integrity." He stood abruptly, pacing the small living room. "This is ridiculous. I built that company into what it is today." "No," I said firmly. "You expanded what I built. There's a difference. My friends, my connections were never really yours," I finished softly. "They were attracted to your money and status. My money, my status." The truth of this seemed to hit him like a physical blow. He sank back onto the couch, deflated. "I can't just start over," he whispered. "I don't know how to be nobody." My heart ached for him then. For all his arrogance, all his betrayal, he was still my child. Still Samuel's son. "You're never nobody, Derek. You're my son. Your father's son. That means something. Or it should." Tears welled in his eyes for the first time. "I just wanted to be successful. To make myself. Success isn't measured by the car you drive or the house you live in. It's measured by the lives you touch, the integrity you maintain, the legacy you build." He wiped his eyes roughly. "So those are my only options. Walk away with nothing or start from scratch. Those are your options." After a long moment, he nodded slowly. "I'll take the program, the second option." Relief washed through me, though I kept my expression neutral. "I'll have Eleanor drop the agreement." "I need to get some things from the house. My house," he corrected bitterly. "You can collect your personal belongings. The property will be sold." He stood to leave, then paused at the door. "Was any of it real, Mama? Was I ever actually good at business? Or was it all just you pulling strings behind the scenes? You have talent, Derek. Real talent. But talent without character is like a car without brakes. Powerful, but headed for disaster." After he left, I called Eleanor to update her. She sounded cautiously optimistic. "He agreed to the program? That's promising." "Yes," I said, "but something doesn't feel right. He gave in too easily." "He's desperate," Eleanor reasoned. "His world just collapsed." "Maybe," I conceded, "but I want a complete audit of all company accounts. Today." My instincts proved correct. By that afternoon, our forensic accountant had discovered something alarming: a hidden offshore account in the Cayman Islands. Over the past 2 years, Derek had been systematically diverting company funds, more than $300,000, into this personal account. "It's textbook embezzlement," the accountant explained, showing me the transaction records. He created fake vendor accounts, approved payments to them, then redirected the money. I felt physically ill. Theft. My son had stolen from me. Not just my authority or my respect, but actual money. Criminal behavior.
"What are my options?" I asked Eleanor. "Legally? Press charges. This is a felony, Evelyn." The thought of my son in handcuffs, in court, in prison, it was unbearable. "And alternatives?" Eleanor sighed. "A restitution agreement. Freeze the offshore account, recover the funds, have him sign a legally binding document admitting to the embezzlement. It would give you leverage if he violates your agreement." That evening, I called Derek back to my house. When I placed the offshore account statements on the coffee table between us, his face went ashen. "I can explain," he began. "Don't." I cut him off. "Don't lie to me again. Ever." His shoulders slumped in defeat. "I could press charges," I said quietly. "You'd face up to 15 years in prison." Fear flashed in his eyes. "Mama, please." "Instead, you'll sign a restitution agreement. The offshore account will be frozen and all funds returned to the company. You'll undergo financial counseling in addition to the leadership program." He nodded quickly, relief evident. "This is your final warning, Derek. One more betrayal, one more lie, and I will not protect you from the consequences." As he signed the papers Eleanor had prepared, I watched his hand tremble. The boy I raised had fallen so far, but perhaps, just perhaps,
He had finally hit bottom. And from the bottom, the only way left was up. If you've ever had to make a difficult choice between enabling someone you love or forcing them to face consequences, drop a heart in the comments. Sometimes the hardest decisions are the most necessary ones. 3 years have passed since that night. The night I stood in my son's mansion and reclaimed my life's work. 3 years of difficult conversations, painful truths, and slow, cautious rebuilding. Derek completed the leadership program as agreed. For 12 months, he worked alongside mechanics, learning the business from the ground up, just as his father had decades earlier. He changed oil, diagnosed engine problems, and dealt directly with customers. No fancy suits, no executive title, no special treatment. The first month was the hardest. He'd come home with grease-stained hands, exhausted and humiliated. Twice he threatened to quit. "This is beneath me," he'd fume. "I have an MBA. I should be in management." Management is a privilege earned through trust, not a right granted by a degree, I'd remind him. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, something began to change in him. The transformation wasn't dramatic or sudden. It came in small moments, quiet realizations. Like the day an elderly customer brought in her 20-year-old sedan, worried about a strange noise. "Ma'am, this car needs significant repairs," Derek told her after inspection. "The cost would exceed the value of the vehicle." The woman's face fell. "I can't afford a new car. My husband bought this one before he passed. I just need it to last another year until my pension starts." The old Derek would have seen only the bottom line. This new Derek saw the person. He said, "Let me talk to my team. We might be able to work something out." He convinced the mechanics to donate their lunch hours to fix her car, charging only for parts at cost. When I found out, I didn't say a word, just watched from my office as my son rediscovered his humanity, one small act at a time. By the end of the year, Derek had earned the respect of the shop floor workers, not through authority, but through humility and hard work. He understood the business now, not just the numbers on spreadsheets, but the people who made those numbers possible. When he completed the program, I honored our agreement. He received a 25% stake in the company and a position as operations director. Not CEO, not president, but a role with real responsibility and clear boundaries. "Thank you," he said simply when I handed him the partnership papers. "You earned it, and for the first time in years, I meant it." Our relationship changed too. The power dynamic shifted, not back to mother and dependent child, but to something more balanced, more honest. We began having Sunday dinners together, just the two of us. At first, conversation was strained, focused only on business. But gradually, we found our way back to each other. One Sunday, as we cleared the dishes, Derek paused. "I've been thinking about Dad a lot lately," he said quietly. My hands stilled on a dinner plate. Samuel had become an almost forbidden topic between us. "What about him?" I asked carefully. "I wonder what he would think of me now, of what I did, of who I became." I considered my words carefully. Your father believed in second chances, in redemption. He would have been heartbroken by your choices, but proud of your courage to change. Derek nodded, eyes glistening. "I miss him. I wish I could tell him I'm sorry." "He knows," I said softly. "Wherever he is, he knows." That night marked a turning point. The wall between us began to crumble, brick by painful brick. Today, Brooks Automotive Group, we restored the original name last year, has 7 locations across Virginia.
Derek oversees operations while I handle strategic planning. We make decisions together, respecting each other's strengths and perspectives. The mansion is long gone, sold to pay back the company funds and finance our expansion. Derek lives in a modest townhouse now. He drives a practical car. He dates a kindergarten teacher who has no interest in status symbols or social climbing.
Last month, at the company's 20th anniversary celebration, Derek surprised me by taking the microphone. "I want to honor the true founder of this company," he said, voice steady as he looked at me. "My mother, Evelyn Brooks, taught me the hardest and most important lesson of my life, that true worth isn't measured by what you own, but by who you are." The room erupted in applause as he presented me with a plaque that now hangs in my office. "To the woman who built an empire with integrity and taught her son to do the same." People often ask if I regret that night, the public confrontation, the harsh consequences I imposed. They wonder if there might have been a gentler way to teach my son his lesson. Perhaps there was. But sometimes love must be tough enough to break through walls of pride and entitlement. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give those we love is the truth, even when it hurts. The word worthless no longer echoes between us. It's been replaced by worthy, worthy of trust, worthy of respect, worthy of the legacy Samuel and I built. If there's one thing I've learned in my 66 years, it's this: your worth isn't determined by others' opinions of you. It's not found in bank accounts or job titles or possessions. Your worth is inherent, unchangeable, and completely independent of others' ability to recognize it. To anyone who's been called worthless, who's been dismissed or underestimated, stand tall, know your value, and never let anyone else define what you're worth. Because sometimes the people who call you worthless are simply afraid of your power. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to hear more stories of family, redemption, and the quiet strength that changes lives. And remember, you are never, ever worthless. Lastly, download your ebook titled Suspense and Thriller Stories by clicking the link in the pinned comment.